And the leading group of 4 riders are now getting back onto the terrain, which suits them just a little bit more as they start to get into the inclines.
Well, this is a time I think that you have to be all in with BMC and Cannondale and use all your riders 4 against 4. Right now they only have those front 2 riders. Everyone else behind them is all sitting on, starting with Samuel Sanchez, the ex-world champ or Olympic champion from 2008, sitting right there in the middle of your screen.
Well, Mickey Shaw driving at the front here. Team BMC have got their 2 top riders here, Sanchez and Buckwalter, but they don't want them here. They want them up with the leaders and close that 40-second gap. Cannondale Drapac have got 3 riders here, including their leader now, which is Talansky, who's just pushing himself up to the back of that group. And that's all that's left of this year's Amgen Tour of California in contention to win this race in Pasadena, because there's nobody else going to be up for consideration by the end of this day. It's been an incredible battle over the mountains. What a great race it's been today. And you know, remember when we had the conversation with the management for Bennett's team, when I think you asked him, who's your leader, Bennett or Gesink? And they said, I think we'll go for Bennett.
You know, they were very convinced, especially after his performance last year in the Vuelta a España. They reckoned it was his coming of age. And he's a young rider from New Zealand who, over the years, has been promising so much, but his results doesn't reflect the kind of racing that he's done. He's one of those guys who's managed to get himself into breakaways, managed to get himself into the top 10 or 12 positions in the overall standings. But sometimes as a rider, it takes a couple of years as a professional, especially on the top professional teams, to develop yourself into a team leader. But now I think, Christian, he's developed that mentality to be a team leader.
Yeah, that's true. It does take a long time, especially when you're from New Zealand. You're from thousands upon thousands of miles away, and they dump you out into Girona, Spain, and you have to really fend for yourself. You've been a big talent on the amateur scene, and now in the professional scene, you really have to look after yourself, and that does take a little while to really mature.
Yeah, now listen, we didn't see it. To my knowledge, I didn't see it, but Bennett actually got 3-second time bonus just now. Morton was second and Micah was third, which means that we're going back here to the unfortunate side here of Tom Scrooge. That really is sad. He's just got to get home today and hope they can get him round to ride again tomorrow.
But you noticed sort of the fraternity of professional cycling just a little bit there. The team manager was just from the rally team, pulled alongside, probably just to check and make sure that he was okay. Well,
yeah, I think he looks okay now.
He looks a lot better than after he crashed.
Just ruining the day that he fell on that descent. It's been the stage when last time he fell, of course, he got up and won, but it's not to be today.
And there's this team car. It looks like he's going to stop, I would assume. Yeah.
Uh-oh.
And that's a great call right there. There's no use in carrying on.
They're just checking him out, first of all, and they're saying, look, let's live to race another day, forget it. Well, he doesn't want to retire, but then what bike rider does when you're a professional?
Never, Phil.
Well, I think you've got to be very careful in this day and age, and he just seemed so groggy.
We might see him at the finish line. He's been awarded the most courageous rider of the day, but...
and well-deserved. I mean, he did a fantastic ride.
Yeah. Now, is he just... Hang on. Are they getting a bike off there? No, they're putting it up. It's all over.
Well, I think, Christian, I think that's probably a very sensible decision by the team management. Tough to pull a guy out who was expecting to get a jersey at the end of the day, but you've got to think about the rest of the season. And to me, the way he was walking around, he looked to me as if he was suffering from, you know, that real bang on the head, because that was a crash where he wasn't able to control the way he fell.
Well, you know, that team in general, with Garmin, starting with Garmin and now Cannondale Drapac, they were one of the first ones to really start with a concussion protocol. So it is good to see them put in their money where their mouth is.
Yeah. Back to the race, though. It's a little bit different as we got to Team BMC now. As you mentioned, Christian, it's a time when you've really got to throw caution to the wind and use all of your riders, which is why we've got 3 riders from Team BMC starting to control this.
Okay, well, that's the BMC taking control. This was what happened to Tom Scrooge when he came down. He just lost, went on a slider there, and there might have been dust on the road, who knows, but he went down with a thump, and he rolled and rolled and rolled. It was a horrible looking crash.
It's one of those crashes where when you start to go down and you're not able to control where you're going to exit the crash, those are the worst because they do the most damage.
You notice his little race radio dropped there, but you know, he couldn't even stand up for a minute. He was in big trouble at this point. And remember that the group behind is coming down at 40 seconds. He had to get out of the way pretty quick, which he did.
And that was the dangerous thing that was happening, because it was only about 20 to 30 seconds. 10 kilometers to go. That's 6 miles of racing. And the gap's still only 45 seconds. 50 seconds has gone up.
For me, it's all to BMC now to repair the damage. They're the only team. They've got their 2 strong riders here. They've got to close this gap to stay in the race, I think.
Looks like Samuel Sanchez, like as they were saying earlier, ex-Olympic champion, now working with Mickey Schaar, his teammate, trying to get Brent Bookwalter back into contention.
But the leading group of 4 are coming back onto the terrain that suits certainly 3 of them a lot. Lachlan Morton, who's sitting on the front. Ian Boswell, great climber in 3rd position for Sky. George Bennett, a very good climber. And the man with the power in this group, I think if this breakaway succeeds to the end, I mean, I think I'd probably put my house on the man in the white jersey, Rafa Majka, to get the stage.
Yeah, I'll put my house right next to you.
Well, from these 4, the one who wins takes over the race lead. And it, to the moment, favours Bennett, because he's picked up 3 seconds bonus over them on the right. But we'll see. And don't write off Lachlan Morton.
No, you can't. Christian actually predicted that he was going to go up Mount Hamilton in a crazy fashion and look for the breakaway, and he lived up to our expectations. But now the question is, what can be done about that 50-second gap? Because a 50-second gap in a short race like the Amgen Tour of California is very difficult to pull back later in the week. 3rd place, though, is the Cofidis rider, Luis Angel Mate. 2nd place is Brent Bookwalter. And this is Sammy Sanchez. I'm just having a look towards the back of that group to see if I can spot Mickey Schaar anymore, but they're running out of a bit of firepower here. You can see on his knee there of Sammy Sanchez a lot of black bandaging. Well, that's because he had a really nasty crash in the Tour of the Basque Country. It looked as if he was on his way to winning the stage there, and he came down very hard. He managed to fight back to get himself ready for Liège-Bastogne-Liège. And the gap's starting to go up. We could see the laying down of the foundations for a possible victory for one of these 4 riders in this race when we get down to Pasadena at the end of the week on Saturday. And they still look like they've got the firepower. You can see the way that they're pedaling. The fluidity is still there. They've still got a nicer high cadence, not rocking and rolling their bodies and struggling with the gear. But that gap is just hovering, 40 seconds, 50 seconds. But they're about to get to the start of the final climb. And it's a pretty tough climb as well, because from the bottom of the climb, it sort of drags up for about 4.5 kilometers, 2.5 miles of racing. And they're now in the situation where they've got to sacrifice Sammy Sanchez, who in his own right could have been a guy who could possibly win this bike race overall, but he said, no, I'm going to work for my American teammate Brent Bookwalter.
And then the pressure's on. When you have a guy like Samuel Sanchez working for you, you have to back that up. And I think that Brent's definitely going to back that up today. But
yeah,
what's going to be happening if we were to believe this 45-second time gap? It's going to be really hard to shut that down.
Brent, for me, is looking pretty confident. He's sitting on the wheel there of Sanchez. Well, it tells us who the team leader is for BMC now anyway, and that's going to be Brent Bookwalter. I mean, he finished 3rd in this race last year and top of the riders in the event this year, because 1st and 2nd have not been able to return for various problems.
But the reference is those 4 riders at the front, they're still riding extremely well, and a big man like Mickey Schaar could do nothing at all to dent their advantage.
And now it's only up to Samuel all by himself, and these guys are still turning. I mean, I think it's going to be really hard. I think it's very slim. They only have about 5 miles to go to the finish line. The only advantage that the peloton has on these guys is mostly uphill. So they have fresher legs on paper, but look at this guy right here in the front. Polish champion Majka, absolutely fresh as a daisy, flying.
Oh, look at that. By the way, Phil, there's the eucalyptus trees I was telling you about in California.
So those are the ones you're blaming for your runny nose. Okay. Yeah, well, there they are. The southern hemisphere trees, really, but they're here in California. And as they make the way through the shadow of the trees, the last kilometer of this race is slightly uphill, but it has a kicker as they get about 150 meters from the line. So they've got to be very careful as they approach the finish. If these 4 are away, it's the guy who wins, takes the yellow jersey, and it'll be very close to between these 4 overall, with the seconds splitting them.
I don't think we've been giving enough love to Ian Boswell, the American rider here on Team Sky. He's been doing a fantastic ride here today, always working for others on that team. Now, obviously, Team Sky has amazing riders, so he's always stuck in that position of working for others. And now he's out there putting his hand up for the leadership role here today, and he's coming through with the goods.
Well, I'll tell you what, Ian Boswell's doing a great ride at the moment, and these four are all very, very strong. They're happy to work.
Yes, I think they all feel very comfortable with the makeup of this breakaway, which is why they're quite happy to share the pacemaker. And there's not one of these riders has actually been holding back everything. They've all been putting full on. Little shake of the arm there by George Bennett saying, come on, let's keep this work going, let's keep collaborating. And the gap has crept back up to the 55-second margin as we get closer and closer to the finish. We're about 6 kilometers to go to the end. And once we get to around about 4.5 kilometers to go, that's when it pretty much climbs right the way up towards the finishing line. And they then get themselves into Metcalfe Road. It's not really a massive climb, it's more of a little bit of a drag up towards the finishing line. The difference between the top and the bottom is only about 150 meters in altitude.
Well, they don't look like riders who are going to be caught now. Take a look at the clock. It's sailed out to 1 minute on that chase group of 16 riders.
And the man leading, the man very consistently coming up to the front as they go through about 5 kilometers to go is Rafa Majka. And the reference to him is winning the King of the Mountains competition on 2 occasions in the Tour de France and some of the big mountain stages too. And he's the one who came into this race for Bora Hansgrohe, who we really thought was going to be the team leader. Probably didn't expect it to happen on this day, Christian. I was expecting everybody to wait till the last couple of stages of this race before they opened up. But this race today has really revealed how strong the contenders are.
Yeah, I expected fireworks, but I didn't expect this to necessarily happen. I didn't really expect to see Rafa firing on all cylinders like he is. I know he finished the end of the spring campaign really strong, and he's obviously still contained that form.
So as we look at the leaders up here, it's a minute gap now, Jens. How do you see it going?
Well, we're now looking at the second group on the road, and this is Sammy Sanchez. I would say starting to panic just a little bit because that gap has stretched up to, well, it's just come back inside of the minute at 59 seconds. We're 3.5 kilometers to go to the finish. It is a little bit of a sticky climb, and the hardest gradient for the 4 leaders is once we start to get into the last kilometer, and then it climbs right up to the finish, and once they go over the top they can look right down onto San Jose in the valley. Bookwalter in second position. This is not a very big group. It's a stage today over 90 miles of racing where we've had a pretty serious sort out.
Well, these 4 riders out front now. They're just over 2 miles from the finish. It's a tricky little climb, but it's not a backbreaker like they've been over all day. But they're going to have to judge their finishing sprint. It's a little bit of a kicker towards the line.
It is. It's really in the final kilometer that they'll meet the worst gradient of this climb when it starts to kick up to not very much more than about 6.5%. But it's the judging the sprint to get over the finishing line. And in the past we saw Peter Sagan get himself the win from a small group, but today has been a much different stage than it was back in 2015. Much more difficult, much more aggressive, as now Sammy Sanchez seems to have pulled off.
That was Mickey. Mickey Chard dragged himself back up to the front, and now Sam was doing one last big turn up there on the front.
Right.
And I would agree with Jens. I mean, you have to be all in. You have these little drags go up to the finish line. You have to just attack. Your teammates have done so much work trying to minimize this gap. You have to go all in, all the way to the finish.
Now, what's Talansky thinking here? Number 31, he's sitting on the back wheel there, the Bookwalter. They're going to have to go and try and get any seconds back they can salvage from the finish now. They're inside 2 miles to the line. Sanchez has done all he can for Team BMC, because along with Cannondale, they could be the losers today.
Well, Mickey Chard did an amazing job to drag himself back up to the front of the group and do one final turn. He realized how important this was. That's Bookwalter there wearing number 11. Shadowing him is Andrew Talansky in the lime green jersey. But, you know, these guys have had a serious race today, and I don't think they're going to pull back very much time on the leading group of 4 inside this final 3 kilometers, Christian.
No, they're not going to take much. And if we're, like we've been saying the whole time, that's 55 seconds still separating these guys, and they're all in with only 1.5 miles to go.
3 kilometers, 1.5 miles left to ride up to the finish. These 4 boys have kept their rhythm. They got away from the lead group originally. They sent those back and past the chase group. The chase group has been around 45 seconds for so long. They're not coming back. Now, who's going to make the move here?
Well, eventually, I'm still with Jens, and that Rafa Michael is going to win this race, but it's going to matter of who's going to be second and third. I'm sure there's going to be a little bit of a movement before that. They're not going to wait to the sprint, but if it does come down to sprint, they have to make sure that they're on his wheel to try to get that same time over the line. And don't forget that there is time bonuses across the line as well.
Well, I'm getting information from out on the finish line, in fact, that there's a very strong headwind as they go through 2 kilometers to go. So it's one of those sprints, you're slightly uphill, you've got the wind in your face, you've got to bide your time before you make your effort. But finally, when you think about Rafa Majka, that guy is so strong, he could probably lead it out for the last 500 meters.
And he has an amazing kick. For a climber, very quick.
He has to judge it. There was a lady rode up this morning who came up to me and told me about the strong wind blowing in their faces coming up towards the finishing line. She said it'll be a tough last couple of kilometers. Well, it will be for any one of them, because the man that makes the first move probably will finish 4th. We'll see.
Unless Majka just drops him, which is a very good possibility.
Wow. Well, let's not write off any of them, because they've looked pretty strong all day. I think these boys are now beaten.
Well, they are, but Sammy Sanchez on the front for Team BMC is doing a pretty amazing job there at 2 kilometers to go. He's sacrificing his chances on the stage for his teammate Brett Buckwalter, who currently sits in 2nd position there. He's pulled back about 15 seconds. Towards the end of this race, those 15 seconds could end up being extremely important. So what Sammy Sanchez, Olympic champion from 2008 on the front there, is doing is trying to pull this race all back together. But, you know, those 4 riders at the front, they're not going to start to duke it out for the victory until they can actually see the finishing line, because they realize time is the most important thing on a stage like this.
And let's not forget that, you know, they're working together, those 4 riders, and into a headwind, which you stated earlier. Now it looks like they're starting to, like, play a little bit of cat and mouse up here at the front. But those guys in the back, they're running out of real estate before this finish line, and that looks like they're coming up on the 1 kilometer to go.
Majka concerned about the whereabouts of that rider in yellow, and he's seen the move coming first of all at 1 kilometer to go. This is the Maxis 1 kilometer run in, and it's Lachlan Morton who's done the dummy. Majka was right there, caught Ian Boswell a little bit perhaps at the back.
Well, Rafa Majka knew exactly that he had to respond immediately to that quick acceleration, because when you lose 10 or 15 bike lengths this close to the finishing line, psychologically it's always very difficult. You've got to nail it back straight away, which is exactly what Rafa Majka in that white jersey did on the front.
Majka forced to take the lead. He's the one they all fear, the champion of Poland, 2-time winner of the Mountains Prize in the Tour de France. Bennett never won a race in his life, but his team think the world of him, and they believe he's the man for the job. Sits in yellow. Ian Boswell, he's never won a race either, and he's made the move right now, and Majka dances across to him as easy as you like.
I think that was a little bit of a dummy move by Boswell, just to see if there was anything left in the legs of Rafa Majka. But Majka, as soon as he saw that acceleration, he matched it.
But you know, these guys got to keep on pushing on. They don't want to waste all this time that they gained over, and they went so deep over this course of the race. So why not just keep on pushing on and just go get that 2nd or 3rd, and don't worry about that win.
Well, they'll come up this little rise just before the finish. They mustn't go too soon. They'll crack in this wind.
Well, that's right, Christian. It's not that important to get the yellow jersey today. It's a bit more important to get the yellow jersey towards the end of the week.
Yeah, you want on Saturday. You don't want to flush all this time down the toilet. There goes Lockie, right to the right-hand side.
Lachlan has gone. Lachlan Morton, who believes he's the king of American cycling, and he raced for Jello Belly. He won all the major races, never won this one. He's now on a World Tour team, which is based in South Africa. Majka's the first to respond. Bennett, perhaps a little bit sluggish, I'm not so sure. The only suspect one for me.
Bennett.
Bennett's gone. And now they've got to react again. Can Lachlan raise it once more? He's going to give it a go. Majka's going.
Well, look at Majka. He just waited to see whether or not Lachlan Morton was going to respond. And once he saw that Morton wasn't getting out of the saddle, he's got to do this on his own. He's come up to the slipstream of George Bennett there, and he holds back. And now it's Ian Boswell trying to come back. They're not too far away. You can just see the banner now in the finish line.
Bennett's gone too soon. He's made a classic mistake here, I think. He got a bit excited. Mike has watched everything. He's looked very casual. He's going to have to go from the front now, Bennett, and through the inside. Mike has got it. This guy's cruising. And this is going to be a yellow jersey, but there'll be a final kick from Bennett or not. It's still a little way around the corner. That's the little kicker. Micah is coming up, and Bennett has no... Oh, he's taken him a bit wide, but it's okay. And it's all over. Rafał Majka, you better not ease up yet, Rafa. He gets it, but it's a bit touch and go. Third place is going to be to... Watch out for Boswell there. Boswell gets third, and it looks like Lachlan Morton gets fourth. A yellow jersey. But Rafał Majka, now he's going to defend it.
Well, that was a bit touchy, Paul.
I think it was a little bit twitchy there. Rafał Majka, I think, opened up the sprint. And this is Robert Hessing now coming up to try and get himself fifth place on the stage. And right on his wheel is Brent Bookwalter.
Again, over that little rise, this is a good return for Robert Hessing here as he tries to come up towards the line. And Brent Bookwalter can but follow, so Brent will come sixth, Hessing goes fifth.
And I think they pulled it back to around about 35 seconds, but there's no questioning of the day. The winner is from Poland, the champion of Poland, Rafał Majka.
And let's not forget about that 10-second time bonus as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we were talking about earlier being the touchy point.
I think you'll find there'll be about 1 or 2 seconds between these two now when we see the final overall for the day. But who cares? This man says he's done his job well. Champion of Poland. Not often you see the champion of Poland's national jersey winning major races. He's just wondering where to go now. Well, he looks very excited to help her, doesn't he? And that, you know, we've seen it the last few days in the hotel. He strutted around the hotel like he's never been out of breath. He's been full of confidence. He's doing the same now.
Okay, but after, okay? I just need to get you there.
Look at that. He's just been asked to sign. He said, okay, after, but now he's done it anyway. Wow. Well, Rafał Majka was our favourite, and he's laid his cards on the table very early on. This race is far from finished. It's a long, hilly road to Pasadena.
I think he over-assumed a little bit here. In fact, he had to get back out of the saddle because he could feel George Bennett just starting to make a shadow on his shoulder there.
Well, I don't think George Bennett was so happy with him, put him into the barriers before that. And then he had to go, he went to the left, try to get around him. Rafa put him into the barriers to his left, and then he had to try to go around to the right. And I was really surprised how little Rafał Majka had. I thought he was going to decimate George Bennett. That just shows how strong George is going right now.
And that's why the team have confidence in him.
Yep.
They'll be given the same time across the line, those two. The others will lose a little bit of time. So Majka lost 2 seconds to Bennett at that time bonus sprint just before the finish. So about 2 seconds will be the time gap overall, I think. Majka against Bennett.
Well, Robert Hessing also laying his stamp on this finishing line, getting himself fifth, and Brent Bookwalter